Shavua Tov, everyone. I hope you're all well. Baruch Hashem, we are back to Sefer Daniel, but this is a recording. I have a parent-teachers conference tonight at Ulpanat Chorev, and apparently they start at 6:30. But I didn't want to cancel our class, so I pre-recorded the shiur, so feel free to listen at your convenience. Okay? We are in Perek Vav, and in the middle of Perek Vav, where we discussed at length 3 weeks ago Daniel Begov Ha'arayot, Daniel in the lion's den. It was really a story of anti-Semitism where Daniel was rising to the top, and there was just simple envy and jealousy of Jews. That's just anti-Semitism. And we saw that the same elements of this ancient story of Daniel in the lion's den can be seen in similar historical events, in which talented Jews and their successes for their countries led to envy, hatred, and murder. And we saw it was all because he was very much well-liked by the king. But the king, he cares more about his empire, about himself, about his chair. And therefore, he went along with these advisors that said to him, look, Daniel is bowing down to other and praying to other gods, not your God. And therefore, they devised the plan that anybody that that prays to another god should be thrown into this pit, the lion's den. And the king had no way out. We saw that from Achashverosh. That the second the king stamps, the approval to with this new law, he can't take it back. So he doesn't have a choice, and he ends up throwing him into the lion's den, that's the pit. And lo and behold, of course, we know the story, nothing happened to him. And of course, deep down, we saw that the king was very happy because he very much loved Daniel. He cherished Daniel, his wisdom, his ability, who he was as a person. But of course, that was secondary to himself, to his own empire. He also didn't want the advisors to revolt against him, to rebel against him, and therefore he went along with them. So Pasuk Kaf Gimel, basically where we ended 3 weeks ago, he sees how the gods of Daniel the God of Daniel saves him from the lions. So we are now in Pasuk Kaf Daled 24. בידי מלכה שגיא תאב אלוהי ולדניאל אמר להנסקה מן גובה והוסק דניאל מן גובה וכל חבל לה השתכח בי די הימין בי להי. Right? So the king was overjoyed. So he gave orders for Daniel to be pulled out of the pit, so that they pulled him out, and they saw that he had not been hurt at all, because he trusted God, meaning because he trusted the Kadosh Baruch Hu, nothing happened. And the king recognized that. He recognized his allegiance, his ne'emanut to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Pasuk Kaf Hei. What happens afterwards? Now he has to deal with the advisors. Ve'amar Malka, ve'haitiv guvraya ilech di achalu kartzohi di Daniel, ulegov aryevata רמו אינון בני הון ונשי הון, ולמתו להרעית גובה עד דשלטו בהון ארייבתה וכל גרמי הון הדיקו. So the king then gives orders to arrest all of those who had accused Daniel, and he had them thrown into the pit instead of Daniel. That was ועשיתם לו כאשר זמם, right? Together with their wives and children, meaning the entire pack, because of what they had done, into the pit filled with lions. And before they even reached the bottom of the pit, the lions pounced on them. They broke all their bones, they ate them up, they devoured them. So we see a midah keneged midah here. But this should remind you of another story, a story that didn't happen yet, but it will happen in a couple of if about 56, maybe a little more, about 60, 70 years, depends how we count. And that's the story of Haman and Mordechai. What was Mordechai's problem as far as Haman was concerned? He didn't bow down to Haman. Haman wanted everybody to bow down to him. Everybody. It wasn't enough that he was in the top. It wasn't enough that Haman was second to the king. It wasn't enough that the king listened to Haman. He wanted everyone to bow down to him. He needed it. He needed that a narcissist, right? He needed everybody to bow down to him. And even though the entire kingdom did, one man, Mordechai didn't. One man. And therefore he needed to get rid of this one man, Mordechai HaYehudi. And with the advice of his family, he builds a big tree, 50 amah, right, to hang Mordechai from it. But what happens? Midah keneged midah. It ends up that he himself and his sons were hung from the tree. So that's not a new theme. It's not a new story because it already happened in Sefer Daniel many years beforehand, where the advisors advised the king to throw Daniel in the pit because he prayed to another king. Really, it was because of jealousy and envy. And it ends up being that the advisors and their families were thrown into this pit and they were devoured by the lions. So that's mamash, a story of anti-Semitism. The difference between the two stories is that in Sefer Daniel, it's really about one man, and it's not about killing and annihilation of all of the Jews, but rather it's just of Daniel, right? So it was envy and jealousy of this one man, and they use his Judaism in order to get to him, right? Because they knew that that he's not going to bow down to another king, to another god, etc. The story of Esther, Megillat Esther, Haman and Mordechai and Achashverosh, was really about on a national scale of the entire Jewish nation. So there are differences, but they're similar in the sense that they're anti-Semitic, and we've seen so many stories like it. So they all burn to a crisp in the lion's den, in the pit, as midah keneged midah. And then what does the king do? Beidayin de Daryavesh Malka ktav lechol amemaya umaya velishanaya didaryin bechol ara shlomchon yisgei. So the king Daryavesh writes to all of the people in the nation, all races, all languages, and he says the following: greetings, my people. Pasuk Kaf Zayin. Min kadamai sim terem di bechol sholtan malchuti lehevon zayin vedachalin min kadam elahei di Daniel dihu elaha chaya vekayam lealmin umalchutei dila titchabal vesholtanei ad sofa. So you could understand the Aramaic already, right? He commands throughout the entire empire that everyone should fear and respect Daniel's God. He is a living God, and he will rule forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his power will never come to an end. So the king recognizes the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He sees this Daryavesh sees the benefit of Daniel, and therefore he sees the benefit of his king. Meaning, he doesn't convert to Judaism. You would think that somebody who sees something as awesome as this would immediately, convert to Judaism. Amazing. But that's not what happens. Instead, he just emphasizes that Daniel's God is a great God, will live forever, etc. Meaning it could be just like other kings. He doesn't deny that there are other kings out there. He doesn't deny that there might be kings just as strong, gods just as strong as Daniel's God. So we see that, it still exists, the idea of many, many gods. It's not a conversion. It's not what Avraham Avinu did by showing the world that there's a one God. It's not about a one God. It's showing, unfortunately, the world there is a powerful God, more powerful than the other God, but they just don't get it. They don't seem to understand that there's really this one God. And this goes back to Perek Bet that we saw Nebuchadnezzar's dream of all the 4 different empires. All these empires, they fail to see what's right in front of their eyes. They fail to see what's really going on, the reality of having a true God versus all the other false gods. They don't see it, and that's on them. Daniel is doing his due diligence. He continues to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though he knows he's putting his life in danger, in the hands of the advisors and the king Daryavesh, but he succeeds, Baruch Hashem. And then because of that, the king is known. Daniel's God is known. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is known to the world. So he commands, and that's what he says. Continuing in Pasuk Kaf Zayin, Kafchet, Misheziv umatzil ve'aved atin ve'timhin bishmaya ube'ara bisheziv le Daniel min yad aryevata. So he saves and rescues. He performs wonders. This is what Daniel's God does. He saved Daniel. He rescued him from the lions. Then he performs wonders, miracles, like unbelievable miracles, both in heaven and on earth. He saved Daniel, of course, from being killed by the lions, min aryevata, from the lion's den. And Daniel, what happens to him? V'Daniel dena hatzlach b'malchut Daryavesh u'malchut Koresh Parsa'a. Daniel prospered during this reign of Daryavesh and the reign of Koresh afterwards. And we mentioned that Daryavesh could have been just a name of all kings. Koresh might have been this king, but it's possible also that he was a son-in-law. We discussed this at length, previously. So what we see from the end of Perek Vav is just another story of anti-Semitism and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu again saves Am Yisrael, saves Daniel in this case, from death. All because he stuck to the truth. It was very easy for Daniel to pray in secrecy, to pray, closing. If you remember, he opened the windows. One of the reasons we brought it is because he wanted the words to travel towards Eretz Yisrael, towards Yerushalayim. He was facing Yerushalayim, which is also one of the things that we do today. We face Eretz Yisrael. Those in Eretz Yisrael face Yerushalayim. Those in Yerushalayim face the Beit HaMikdash. That's why we all face, different places. It's not Ma'arav. Only those who are east of Yerushalayim will face Ma'arav, or those who are Mizrach. Those who are west of Eretz Yisrael will face Yerushalayim, meaning they'll face the east. But he was all the way up north. Northeast. So he faced Yerushalayim, and it was very easy for him just to close the doors, to close the windows, not let anybody see him, or pray at night when no one's around. But he prayed 3 times a day in broad daylight. He wanted people to see. I think somebody mentioned last week, he wanted people to see, because he wasn't embarrassed of it, knowing well that he probably will be caught and thrown to this lion's den. But he didn't care, because of truth and sticking to his belief is what he did. And we need to learn from him to be proud of our Yahadut, of our Yiddishkeit, of our Judaism in public, no matter where we are, not take off our yarmulke. Of course, when you're in danger, we're not on the level of Daniel. Therefore, when you're in danger, you're allowed to in certain instances. But Baruch Hashem, in the Eretz Yisrael, there's no reason to do so. So that concludes Perek Vav, the 6th chapter. And now we're going to the second part of Sefer Daniel, which begins in Perek Zayin, the 7th chapter. It's a whole new part. We mentioned in the introduction that Sefer Daniel is divided into 2. There's Daniel who succeeds in Ptirat Chalomot, right? He succeeds in solving the dreams of the different kings, similar to Yosef, as we noted. And from Perek Zayin going forward, it's a different type of book. It's all about his own dreams. And Daniel now is dreaming. The types of dreams that he is going to dream about at nighttime supposedly are going to be telling the future. So the first dream, so Daniel's dream, which we're about to read now in Perek Zayin, the 7th chapter, is a reconstruction of Hamelech Nebuchadnezzar, King Nebuchadnezzar's dream that we already read in Perek Bet. We shouldn't be surprised that the same dream reappears again in our chapter, since that's the nature of important dreams, right? They recur. Yet Daniel's dream that we're going to read has different symbols than Nebuchadnezzar's did. Nebuchadnezzar, if you recall, he saw a great big statue that was made out of 4 parts, and he was the head. He was the important one. He was the brains of everything, right? He was represented by the head, and then there's the chest area, etc., and then the feet, and we say there, when we learned there that Daniel explained to Nebuchadnezzar that there are 4 empires that are to come before they will all be completely demolished, and the real God will emerge and appear. Now Daniel sees also in his dream also 4 parts, but not in one statue. He sees it in 4 animals, one more frightening than the next. And these animals, they symbolize the 4 kingdoms similar to Nebuchadnezzar's dream. At least 2 of these animals, which Daniel lived through in his lifetime, which was Bavel and Paras, Babylon and Persia, he basically witnessed. And right now, we're basically right before the Persian dynasty. So it's the end of the Babylonian Empire. So we're talking about Belshazzar, which we met already, right? So we're going backwards, because now we're talking about his own personal dreams. We're not talking about him solving dreams, but his own dreams that will be telling the future, okay? Now, traditional commentators, Chazal basically, but also the Rishonim, they tend to see the 2 animals, the first 2 animals as the first 2 we know is Bavel and Paras, but the second 2, the last 2, basically as Yavan and Roma. Now we saw this. I made a whole chart that we learned back in chapter 2. So I'm not going to go back, but it's online. You can go look at the chart. So chronologically, we are now back to the time of Bavel, the Babylonian Empire. Well, the first year of Belshazzar reigns, which is the last part of the Babylonian ruler, right before Paras, before Koresh, Daryavesh, etc. Now, it's definitely possible to say that, and this is important, that the theme of Sefer Daniel, which we said is divided into 2, is also the reason for the division of this book into 2 parts, which I think might be said that the first part is all about Galut, right? Up until, meaning Perek Aleph all the way to Perek Vav is about Galut, what happened to Daniel, how they were taken from Chulvot Yerushalayim right before the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, and how many people were, including Daniel's friends, and how at the time Nebuchadnezzar mapped out and he took the talented ones to use them. God only knows what he did with the other ones. So that's the first part. It's all about the Galut. And the second part, from Zayin forward, is about the Geula, his dreams, the Chazon Ha'atid. So the diaspora and the redemption, if you will, right? So while the first part of the book deals mainly with the existence of Jews and the successes, at least that's how we learned about Daniel and his friends in the diaspora, in the Galut, the second part, which we're going to start today, is in a way, I guess, the $64 million question. Right? When will the exile end? When will there be a Geula? Are we now in Geula? Well, many of the poskim at this door, Rav Kook and others, were in the Itchalta de Geula, the beginning of the Geula. When are we going to see the actual Geula? When will he live to see the Geula? To see the Beit HaMikdash? See Mashiach, whatever that means, Tchiat HaMeitim. So Daniel's first vision, which startles him, shakes him, basically builds the overall historical framework of the Atid, of the future. 4 kingdoms are to reign and only after that will the redemption come. So that's important to note. We might have mentioned this also in the introduction. Now, the cause of the fall of the first kingdom, that's familiar to us. A, because we learned it, but also because we know that. It's the arrogance. It was the arrogance of Nebuchadnezzar, Melech Bavel, the king of Bavel, who came in thinking that he's the king of the world, the universe. And that caused, at the time, a temporary removal from the kingdom, right? We mentioned that. He went crazy. And that was that was the second dream that Daniel solved. And then until he realized that there's a one God in the world, and he comes back. And then we saw Belshazzar's arrogance, right? That was the cause of the Babylonian downfall. From there, we go through the other two kingdoms, number 2 and number 3, until we actually meet the fourth and last empire. The fourth kingdom, or the fourth empire, will basically be the one that will offend God in such a deep way that it will cause Hashem himself to intervene and lead to a complete destruction of that fourth ruler, of the fourth empire, and his kingdom. Just one, before we go into reading Perek Zayin, the text, I want to say one thing. A fortune teller, or Magidei Atidot, first of all, that it's halachically, it's a problem, right? But they're very, very dangerous. When you want to know the future, it's a very dangerous thing, not because we believe the fortune teller. It's not the reason why it's dangerous, but because it can be addictive. Because people want to know the future. We want to know the future, what's going to happen, right? We desire to know what will be in our personal future, our family's future. Will I get the job? Will I not get the job? Will I overcome this terrible illness that I have? Will I not? What will happen to a family member? What will happen to, that's on the personal scale, but also on the national scale, right? What's going to happen to Am Yisrael? Will it be really redeemed? Will we really rule the world? What's going to happen? We all want to know. And once you have, text, that text tells you this is what's going to happen, you're going to try to decipher it. That's natural, right? If I gave you a text and said, okay, this is the future, you're going to try to figure it out. That's what Perek Zayin Chet Tet Yud, that's basically what it is, right? It tells us what's going to happen. It's going to tell us when we're going to see the Beit HaMikdash. Our children, are they going to be able to see it? So it turns out that our sages, Chachamenu Zichronam Livracha, also had these attempts. They wanted to figure out also Acharit HaYamim. They wanted to know when is it going to happen? When am I going to actually see redemption? When is the Geulah going to happen? Is it going to be in my day? So there's a famous Gemara. The Gemara is in Masechet Sanhedrin, in Daf Tzadi Zayin Amud Bet 97b. I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to share it or anything like that. Just could listen. But basically, it starts with a Braita. Okay, it starts with a Braita. Tanya Rabbi Natan Omer. Rabbi Natan, he tries to understand what's really going on based on the psukim of our Perek and Daniel. And this is what he says. Rabbi Natan says, Mikra ze nokev yored ad tehom. The verse that we're going to see in a minute pierced and plummets to the depth. Ki od chazon lamoed v'yafeach laketz v'lo yechazev. I have Schottenstein, so I'm just going to translate the Schottenstein. Basically it says, for there is another vision of the appointed time. It shall speak of the end, and it shall not lie. This is going to be the end of all. This is our future. And this is what the Gemara says. Imit mahamea chakelo kivo yavo lo yeacher. If it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay. Meaning the verse implies, right, that the date of the redemption is concealed from us, but it's in the text. And this is what the Gemara says. Lo keraboteinu, שהיו דורשים עד עידן ועידנים ופלג עידן. It is contrary to our sages who expounded the verse until a time and times and half a time to determine the date of the redemption. Meaning, Rabbi Natan warns us not to rely on the date projected by those sages. Says you can find chachamim that try to figure out based on the text of the perek and the following prakim when there is going to be a redemption, but don't rely on them. Says Rabbi Natan, don't rely on my friends who figure out a way to solve the prakim because there's a lot that is concealed. If you learn it and you understand it, it doesn't mean you're going to really know when the redemption is going to come. But not just the chachamim. And he brings forth two very big chachamim. Velo kerabi simlai, shaya doresh, ha'achaltam lechem dim'a v'tashkemo bidmaot shlish. It's the contrary to Rabbi Simlai. He tried also to figure out when Geulah is going to happen. Lo ke Rabbi Akiva, not like Rabbi Akiva himself. Also hayad doresh, meaning you cannot rely on any of these people, even as great as they were. So Rav Natan brings basically a braita, in which he includes three different methods of trying to identify when the exile will end and when there will be a Geulah. But the Gemara emphasizes the message very, very clearly. We can study, we can interpret, but it's impossible to really know when the Geulah will come. It's supposed to be concealed. Yet, Be'ezrat Hashem, next week, I hope, we're not going to get there this week. Next week, I would like to try and tackle it and present an idea. I think it may be said that we are now in the fourth kingdom. I call it the era of technology and nuclear threat, right? But let's look inside. Let's begin Perek Zayin on our new journey of trying to decipher the future. But don't be addicted to it. Don't look into this, say, this is what it is. As the Gemara says, we can never really know. It will be concealed to us. Yet still, it's fun, it's learning Torah, and it's important to just understand some of the text, and maybe it can contribute something to our lives, even if not really revealing the future, understanding things that might contribute to our lives of who we are and what we need to do to go forward. Okay, so let's jump into Perek Zayin, Pasuk Aleph. Okay? Beseder. So we're going backwards, as we said. Bishnat Chada Level Melech Bavel, Daniel Chelem Chaza. Right? So in the first year of Belshazzar, the king of Bavel, right? The last king of Bavel before the Persians took over, Daniel says, I had a dream. I saw a vision in the night. V'chezve reshei al mishkevei, Beidayin chelma ktav rosh milin amar. And I wrote the dream down, and this is a record. So this is not anything like the previous 6 chapters. This is brand new, where he's basically telling you, this is what I saw. I'm revealing to you what I saw. And as we're going to see, he himself doesn't always understand, mostly doesn't understand what he's seeing. But he's relaying the visions to us. And this is what he saw. Pasuk Bet. Ane Daniel ve'amar. Chazei haveit bechezvi im lelia. Va'aru arba ruchei shemaya megichan leyama rabba. He says, what I saw during the night, winds were blowing from all directions and lashing the surfaces of the oceans. So he saw it at night. Right? Nighttime is known to be a time of emunah, of great belief. Right? We always say in Kriyat Shema at night that emet ve'emunah kol zot. Right? You can see clearly at nighttime. There's something about the night, something about the lack of light, something about true inner depth of the human psyche, of the human the depth of our emotions. Right? To be able to capture visions. It's known that, also with Avraham Avinu also, it became dark, Brit Ben Abetarim. So here too, there's an emphasis on the nighttime. He saw this at nighttime. He saw the visions at night. And he says, in Pasuk Gimel. So he says basically he saw 4 huge beasts. They came out of the ocean, each one different from the other. Right? He saw these Arba Ruchei Shmaya, Arba Cheivan Ravrevan Salkan Min Yama, these beasts. Ravrevan, these beasts came out of the ocean. Shanyan Da Min Da. And they were all different one from another. Shanyan Da Min Da. Similar, if you recall, to Nebuchadnezzar's dream, when he saw one statue, but the statue was divided into 4 parts. Here too, Daniel is seeing not a statue, but rather 4 distinct, different animals, beasts. They were terrible, horrible, terrifying to look at. That's what he says. Kadmaita, the first one, Kadmaita, like the first, Ke'aryeh. V'gapin di nishar la. The first one looked like a lion. It had wings like an eagle. V'gapin di nishar la, had wings like an eagle. Chazei havet ad di meritu gapa untilat min ara ve'al raglayin ke'enash hokimat ulvav enosh Yehiv le. So while Daniel says, while I'm watching the vision, while I'm seeing this happen before my eyes, these beasts. The first one, this lion with the wings like an eagle. The wings were torn off. They were torn off, and then the beast was lifted up, and then he kind of like stood up straight, right? Stood straight. He stood up straight, hokimat, like lakum, and then a human mind was given to it, right? Ulvav enosh yahiv le. It could be ulvav enosh. So I have a somewhat of I have in front of me Rav Steinsaltz's translation. And he says, Ulvav enosh yehiv la, on Pasuk Daled, he says, Ulevav adam nitan la, a human heart. So that's what he says, but I've seen other translations, not necessarily human heart, because a human mind was given to it as well. But either way, the human heart that can feel, or the human mind that can think, which differs in all animals in our ability to think, and feel, far exceed any other animal's capabilities. Either way, that's what he saw. What does it mean? We'll see soon. So that was the first vision. That's Bavel, right? So now if we compare to Bavel to Nebuchadnezzar's dream, it's the greatest of all of them, right? Yet the next beast is more terrifying than the first. So though Bavel was great in his mind, in his stretching his arms to, he wasn't the greatest empire, right? So that was the first animal that he sees. What does it mean? We'll see. The second one comes up in Pasuk Hey. Ve'aru cheva achori tinyana. Right? The second beast looked like domya le dov. It looked like a dove, a bear. Uvelishta chad hokimat utlat il'in befuma ben shina. So the second animal comes out of the oceans, a bear standing on its hind legs, right? Standing on its hind legs. And what was it holding? It was holding three ribs, ribs, right, between its teeth. Kind of like, just as if it just ate and devoured the first animal, right? That's what the Persian Empire did with the Babylonian Empire. So it just finished conquering the first one, so it has its in its teeth. V'chen amrin la kumi achuli besar sagi. And then a voice said to it, go on, eat as much meat as you can. Continue devouring the Babylonian empire, eat it all, devour it, finish it up, and leave nothing left. And in truth, there's nothing left of the Babylonian Empire. We talk about the Babylonian Empire, but there's nothing left of the Babylonian Empire. It's all gone, right? We know that happened also with the Persian Empire, Greece, Rome, as we saw before. We'll see. So that was the second one, the second animal, similar to the statue that we saw, the Nebuchadnezzar, but very, very different. But as he was watching, Batar Denachaze, as I was watching this in my dream, and he keeps on saying this so that we recognize the fact that he's not making this up. He's saying, this is what I saw. He too is going to have to try to translate it, try to solve it. But right now he's just giving us, relaying what he saw. So therefore, the Mikra, the text is saying, this is what I saw. Batar Denachaze. After that, I was watching, and I saw Havet ve'aru achori, after the second beast, this bear, I saw kinnemar, right, like a leopard, like a namer, kinmar vela gapin arba, the off al gabe. So while I was watching this, a third beast comes out, appears. It looked like a leopard, but on its back there were like these 4 wings. The off al gabe, there were 4 wings, like the wings of a bird, like an off, right? Ve'arbea reishin lechevta, and there were 4 heads coming out of it. Ve'sholtan yehivle, it had looked it looked like it was very strong, had authority over the beast that came before it. Again, another one conquering the empire that came before that. So that's the third, the third beast, right? A namer, like a tiger, like a leopard. Okay, pasuk zayin. And as I was watching, a 4th animal comes out. Batar dena chaze habet bechezvei lelia. Right, as I was watching during the night. Va'aru cheva revi'a'a. A 4th beast appears, but this beast was not like any other beast he has ever seen. Up until now, he recognized the lion. You could see that it has a lion feature. He recognized the features of a bear and of a leopard. Now they had all these wings and these teeth and everything, so they were much more terrifying and scarier than the regular animals. But this 4th one, he says, I couldn't even recognize it, right? It was powerful. Dichila ve'eimtani. Eima was powerful. Ve'takifa yatira. And it was horrible and terrifying. Ve'shinayin difarzela ravrevan, and huge iron teeth. And it crushed its victims. Ve'achla umadka ush'ara beragla rafsa. And then it trampled on them. It took all the victims, crushed them, and trampled on them. Then he says, min chivata di kadama v'karnin asar la. Pasuk chet. Mistakal havet bekarnaya, va'alu keren achori ze'era silkat benihen. Basically saying that unlike any other beast that I've ever seen, this one had 10 horns. Utlat min karnaya kadmayata at et akara min kadma. Ve'alu ainin ke'ainei enasha bekarnada ufum memalil ravreva. So while he was watching or staring at these horns in his division, and he's telling us what he, when you're dreaming, sometimes you see yourself as the onlooker. You're looking, you're watching, right? And he's relaying, this is what I saw when I was looking at the horns. I saw a little horn coming up among the others, right? Mistakal havet bekarna vilu keren achori, one from the back, some kind of horn from the back came out, and it tore out 3 of the horns that were already there, kind of tore out, and this horn had human eyes. Ke'aina enasha, human eyes, and a mouth that was boasting proudly. Ufum memalil ravrevan, a mouth that was basically going against God. That's what we mentioned before, right? That this last one will basically be the one to cause HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, to come down and take this world into his hands and bring the redemption, the end of all of it, Gog and Magog or whatever, right? We didn't get there yet. We will discuss that. So we'll stop here because the next part really is the next part of the dream, and I don't want to mix the two. But we see here a more terrifying dream than the one that he explained and interpreted to Melech Nebuchadnezzar, for many reasons. Why? Number one, because it wasn't his dream; he was interpreting someone else's dream. So he was only if you recall, the dream of Nebuchadnezzar wasn't really delivered. It wasn't conveyed to anyone. That was one of the greatnesses of Daniel. He was able to guess what the dream was, but he didn't actually see the dream. And because he didn't see the dream, he was only able to intellectually interpret the dream. So there was no real emotion when he translated, when he interpreted the dream to Nebuchadnezzar. He didn't have that extra added emotion of terror, of horrifying, of being scared. Here it's his own dream, maybe a nightmare. And therefore, there's an added element of emotion. But that emotion is important. That emotion basically teaches us how important these visions are, because they're terrifying, and they're supposed to be terrifying. And the last one, the fourth, which we don't know, did we get to the last one? According to Chazal, it could have been Greek and Rome, so which means that we've already passed the last one, but we still don't have redemption. So I mentioned, if you recall, when we went through the four different possible empires, I mentioned maybe Christianity and Islam is the last one. But maybe, and this is what I want to discuss maybe next week, is maybe it's not necessarily one empire, but rather the world's outlook at what's important. We have Western culture. We have the nuclear threat. We have all these different movements that are threatening the whole ethical way of Yahadut in many, many ways. Is that the fourth empire, or is that just another part of already a fourth empire that started a long time ago? So Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll see that next week and go to the next part, Be'ezrat Hashem, which is fascinating, which is where we meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's who we're going to meet in the dream. So to be continued, I wish everyone an awesome week. Stay warm. Again, this is recorded, so you can watch us at any time. It'll be uploaded to YouTube, Be'ezrat Hashem, as well. So Shavua Tov, and stay warm. And